Om Namah Shivaya children. Good morning. I hope you remember what we learnt about heart. So we learnt that it is a muscular organ. It has 4 chambers. That is, upper 2 chambers are called as left and the right auricle, and lower 2 chambers are called as ventricle. That is left ventricle or right and the right ventricle. And the left side of your heart will always receive oxygenated blood, and the right side of your heart will always receive carbon dioxide rich blood. And we learned how the chambers are preventing the mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, and we saw from where the carbon dioxide rich blood reaches the heart and from where the oxygen rich blood is reaching the heart. Okay, so we saw that the oxygen rich blood from the lungs, so lungs will take up oxygen, and the blood which is rich in oxygen will enter into the upper to the thin walled upper chamber, which is the left atrium. Eppozhum heart and the left side aanu oxygenated blood ne carry cheya. So the oxygen rich blood from the lungs will reach the upper auricle, which is the left atrium. Okay, so it will reach the left atrium, and once the left atrium receives the blood, how does it receive it? It will be in a relaxed state when it receives the blood. That relaxed aayirikkum. Relaxed nu vecha open aayirikkum. Appo that time the blood will enter into the or it will fill the left atrium, and once the left atrium is filled, it will push the blood into the next chamber, which is the left ventricle. Okay, so from left atrium it will move on to the left ventricle, and when the left ventricle is receiving the blood, the upper chamber will contract. Idu churungum. Evideyana chorala adu churungiyalla thaalathekku blood povum. So it will contract and it will push the blood towards the left ventricle. Okay, and from there it is sent into the blood vessels, and it is reaching the different parts of the body. And now if you take the case of the right atrium, so the right atrium will receive deoxygenated blood from various parts of our body. Okay, so right side will always receive deoxygenated blood, and when the right atrium is relaxing, that time the blood from different parts of the body will enter this upper chamber, and once it is fully filled, it will push the blood into the right ventricle. Adinte thaale thanneyulla right ventricle like blood na push cheyum, right? So the blood will be released into the right ventricle, and how is it done? It is by the contraction of the upper chamber, and while the upper chamber is contracting, the lower chamber will be in a relaxed position. It will get the deoxygenated blood, and once the deoxygenated blood fills the right ventricle, from there it is pumped out of the heart to reach the lungs for oxygenation, right? So this is what we learned in the last class, children, and we saw the use of valves which will prevent the backflow of blood, and other than that, the upper 2 chambers are thin walled and lower 2 chambers are thick walled, because they have to pump the blood to different parts of the body. Okay, Atrium force la poya matra ella cells lekum ettullu, right? So all these 4 chambers will work together. So first the upper 2 chambers will contract and it will push the blood downwards, and the lower 2 chambers will then contract and it will push the blood out from the heart. So this is what we learned in the heart, and also we learned how the chambers are separated, and same way we learned why there is a necessity for the separation of the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. Okay, so separation of this right side and left side of the heart is useful to keep oxygenated and deoxygenated blood from mixing, and such separation will allow a highly efficient supply of oxygen to the body. Endondana angane separate cheyidu vekkuna? It is for the oxygen to reach our body very efficiently. Okay, because oxygen is needed by our cells every time. Okay, and why do organisms like us need such an energy, such an efficient supply of oxygen? It is because to produce energy. Oxygen undayale nammala sharirathina energy produce cheyan pattullu. So this efficient supply of oxygen is helpful, or it is useful in animals that have high energy needs, like human beings, that is mammals and also birds. In these organisms, they require a high energy need. Okay, and why do they require this high energy need? They require this high energy to constantly maintain their body temperature. Our cells produce ചെയ്യുന്ന എനർജി യൂസ് ചെയ്തിട്ടാണ് അവരുടെ ബോഡി ടെമ്പറേച്ചറിന് മെയിൻറ്റെയിൻ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്നത്. സോ വി ഹാവ് എ ബോഡി ടെമ്പറേച്ചർ, റൈറ്റ്? എവറി ടൈം വി ഹാവ് എ ബോഡി ടെമ്പറേച്ചർ, ആൻഡ് വെൻ യു ഗെറ്റ് എ ഫീവർ ദാറ്റ് ടൈം യുവർ ബോഡി ടെമ്പറേച്ചർ ഇസ് ഇൻക്രീസിങ്. അപ്പം നോർമൽ ടൈമിൽ യു ഹാവ് എ നോർമൽ റേഞ്ച് ഓഫ് ദിസ് ബോഡി ടെമ്പറേച്ചർ, ആൻഡ് ഇഫ് ദിസ് ബോഡി ടെമ്പറേച്ചർ ഹാസ് ടു ബി maintained properly, then energy is needed for it. Okay, so to maintain the body temperature, animals like that is animals which includes the birds and mammals, they require efficient supply of oxygen. എന്തുകൊണ്ട് efficient supply of oxygen വേണ്ട എനർജീന്? Only then cellular respiration can happen. It produces energy. So oxygen is very important. It has to efficiently reach the cells to produce energy, and this energy is constantly used. എപ്പോഴും അത് എന്തിനാണ് യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്? നമ്മുടെ ബോഡി ടെമ്പറേച്ചർ മെയിൻറ്റെയിൻ ചെയ്യാൻ. Okay, so such organisms are called as warm-blooded animals. I hope you remember about warm-blooded and cold-blooded animals, right? So this is the case of animals which have to maintain their body temperature, and there are animals who do not use energy for this purpose. To maintain their body temperature, though they do not require any energy for it. So in animals that do not use energy for this purpose, their body temperature will depend on the temperature in the environment. Okay, environment എന്ത് ടെമ്പറേച്ചർ ആണോ അത് ബേസ് ചെയ്തിട്ടായിരിക്കും അവരുടെ ബോഡി ടെമ്പറേച്ചർ ഉണ്ടാവുക. Okay, so in such cold-blooded animals like amphibians or many reptiles, they have 3-chambered heart. Okay, so amphibians are animals who can live on both land and water. So animals like amphibians or many reptiles like snakes, lizard, turtles, these animals except the crocodiles. Reptiles la crocodiles verum, പക്ഷേ crocodiles they have 4-chambered heart. So except the crocodile, many other reptiles they have 3-chambered heart. Okay, so we know that 4-chambered heart ഉണ്ടാവുമ്പോഴേ കംപ്ലീറ്റ് ആയിട്ട് മിക്സിങ് നമുക്ക് അവോയ്ഡ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുള്ളൂ. ആൻഡ് വെൻ ആനിമൽസ് ലൈക്ക് ദീസ് ആംഫിബിയൻസ് ആൻഡ് റെപ്റ്റൈൽസ് ഹാവ് 3-chambered heart, they have to tolerate some mixing of this oxygenated and deoxygenated blood streams. Right? ചെറിയൊരു രീതിയിൽ അവിടെ ഓക്സിജനേറ്റഡ് ബ്ലഡും ഡീഓക്സിജനേറ്റഡ് ബ്ലഡും മിക്സ് ആവും. Okay, we will just see the 3-chambered heart of the amphibians or reptiles. Don't see this part, avoid this portion, this is not needed. Just see the 3-chambered heart diagram which they have given. So we can see here they have right atrium, left atrium, and they have only one ventricle. So that is why I told that they have 3-chambered heart. So right atrium is 1 chamber, left atrium is the 2nd chamber, and the ventricle is the 3rd chamber. Right, let us see how the blood is passing through the 3 chambers in the case of reptiles and amphibians. So the left atrium will receive the oxygen rich blood from the lungs. Okay, ലങ്സിലേക്ക് ഓക്സിജൻ എത്തും. ആ ലങ്സിലെത്തുന്ന ഓക്സിജൻ റിച്ച് ബ്ലഡിന് ആരാ കളക്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നത്? ഇറ്റ് ഇസ് റീച്ചിങ് ദ ലെഫ്റ്റ് ഏട്രിയം. Okay, and left atrium will push this blood into the ventricle. And from the ventricle, the oxygen will leave to the body cell. Okay, but heart left side these 3-chambered animals, they will receive the oxygen rich blood from the lungs. Okay, left atrium will receive oxygen rich blood, and this oxygen rich blood then will enter into the ventricle, and from the ventricle they will be sent into different parts of their body. Okay, because in their body also their cells require cellular respiration. Appo adinu vendi oxygen has to reach each and every cell in their body. Okay, now if you take the case of the carbon dioxide rich blood, appo idu cells it is given for cellular respiration. That time the blood which contains carbon dioxide, that is deoxygenated blood, will come from the different parts of the body into the right atrium. Okay, so blood from the, that is oxygen poor blood from the different parts of the body. Oxygen poor blood എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് deoxygenated blood ആണ്. So this deoxygenated blood will receive in the right atrium. Okay, and this right atrium will then push the deoxygenated blood into the ventricle. Now see here what is happening here. Oxygenated blood എത്തുന്നതും ventricle ആണ്, and the deoxygenated blood also reaches the ventricle. So a little amount of mixing up of these blood happens here. Okay, and from here this deoxygenated blood will move out of the heart and reaches the lungs for oxygenation. Okay, so oxygen poor blood then goes to the lungs for oxygenation, and this cycle will be continuing again and again. Okay, so this is how the three-chambered animals are able to carry out the pumping process with their three-chambered heart. Okay, so these animals will withstand some amount of mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. So this is the case of animals who have three chambers. Now coming to the next one, which is the fishes. So fishes on the other hand have only two chambers to their hearts. So they have only two chambers. Two chambers മാത്രമേ ഫിഷസിന് ഉള്ളൂ. Okay, so in amphibians we saw three chambers. They are also cold-blooded animal. അതേപോലെ fishes are also cold-blooded, but they have only two chambers of their heart. Right? And what happens here in the case of fishes, as they have only two-chambered heart, they will have only atrium and a ventricle. ഒരു atriumum ഒരു ventricle മാത്രമാണ് ഫിഷസിന്റെ ഹാർട്ടിൽ ഉണ്ടാവുക. Okay, now we know that fishes will take in water through their mouth. അവരെ വായിലേക്ക് കൂടി പോകുന്ന oxygen rich water എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് it will enter into the gills, and gills are the one who absorbs the oxygen in the water. Okay, so the water which is entering through their mouth will contain oxygen. So they are taking dissolved oxygen, right? അവർക്കു നമ്മളെ പോലെ atmosphere oxygen എടുക്കാൻ പറ്റൂല. So they take the dissolved oxygen in the water. So when water rushes into the mouth, it will come across the gills. അപ്പോൾ വായിലേക്ക് കൂടി വെള്ളം പോകുമ്പോൾ അവരുടെ ഗിൽസിലാണ് ആ വെള്ളം തട്ടുന്നത്. And when the water is reaching the gills, or when the gills are bathed in that water, the gills will start taking oxygen from that water. Okay, എങ്ങനെ അവർ ഓക്സിജൻ എടുക്കുന്നത്? Because the gills are completely supplied with blood capillaries. So blood capillaries will have blood in them. So the blood will be absorbing the oxygen. Okay, and then what they will do? The blood will move to different parts of the body and they will provide the necessary oxygen. So from the gills, what happens to the oxygen rich blood? It will move to the different parts of the body of the fishes. Okay, and once it reaches the cells, and once the oxygen is given for cellular respiration, they will carry carbon dioxide rich blood and they will move towards the heart. Okay, അപ്പോൾ ഓക്സിജൻ റിച്ച് ബ്ലഡിന് അവരുടെ ബോഡി സെൽസിലേക്ക് കൊടുത്തു ഡയറക്റ്റ് ആയിട്ട് ഫ്രം ദ ഗിൽസ് ദ ഓക്സിജൻ റിച്ച് ബ്ലഡ് വിൽ റീച്ച് ദി ബോഡി സെൽസ് ആൻഡ് ടിഷ്യൂസ്. Okay, and in the body cells and tissues, what happens? They will give the oxygen and they will take up the carbon dioxide from them, and then they will move to the heart. Okay, and heart, it has only two chambers. So what are the two chambers? One is atrium and the other one is the ventricle. So this deoxygenated blood will enter into the atrium first, and then it moves to the ventricle, and from the ventricle it is pumped to the gills again. Okay, so this is how the fishes are able to carry out the circulation process with the help of the heart. Right, so fishes on the other hand have only two chambers of heart, and the blood is pumped to the gills, is oxygenated there and passes directly to the rest of the body. അപ്പോൾ ഗിൽസിലേക്ക് എത്തുന്ന കാർബൺ ഡൈ ഓക്സൈഡ് റിച്ച് ബ്ലഡ് എന്ത് ചെയ്യും? കാർബൺ ഡൈ ഓക്സൈഡിനെ പുറത്ത് വിട്ടിട്ട് again they will carry oxygen from the water, and then again they will pass through the body of the fishes and it will collect carbon dioxide rich blood, and then it moves through the heart to the atrium, ventricle, and then to the gills again for oxygenation. Right, so thus blood goes only once through the heart in the fish during one cycle of passage through their body. അപ്പോൾ ഒരു പ്രാവശ്യം മാത്രമേ ഹാർട്ടിലേക്ക് കൂടി ബ്ലഡ് പോകുന്നുള്ളൂ in the case of the fishes. Clear with this, children? I hope you are clear with that. Now let us move on to the next part, which is double circulation. Okay, let us see what is double circulation.